Grab some small white pumpkins and 2 hanging baskets from your local dollar store. Flip one of the baskets upside down and connect the 2 baskets together by zip tying the middle. Take a eucalyptus garland and twist the wire end around one of the spokes of the wire globe. Start to wrap the garland. Take your time and move the leaves through the spaces as you wrap the garland. Twist, move, and arrange the leaves so they face outward. Take some battery-operated fairy lights and nestle the battery pack into the bottom of the globe. Begin to wrap the fairy lights over and around the bottom half of the basket globe. Wrap over the top. Next, fill in the center of the garland-wrapped globe with a generous amount of Spanish moss. Remember those white dollar store pumpkins? Give them a very light dusting of spray paint. Tuck them into the basket globe and nestle them into the Spanish moss. Hang your new pumpkin globe on a porch or from a tree branch. Turn the lights on with your remote control and enjoy the cozy hanging pumpkin glow on a beautiful fall evening.
We're going to start with some hula hoops. Take your first 2 hula hoops and you're going to place them one inside the other. Take a zip tie and you're going to use it to join the 2 tops of the hula hoops. 2 of those together. Go ahead and use your scissors. Take off the excess zip ties right there. Turn it over, and we got to do the same thing on the other side. And now it's time to put the 3rd one in. But go ahead and put it on the inside and put them together. We're going to take it outside and give it a nice paint job. Make sure the paint you use is good for plastic. So we're going to use some of these fairy lights. I went ahead and got the orange ones. They're easy to get off Amazon. They come with a remote. Go ahead and zip tie the battery pack to the bottom. This way it'll have some weight on the bottom when you're holding it steady. Go ahead and take the fairy lights and start wrapping. There's 33 feet of this. Plenty to go. Next, I got some 16 gauge wire. Use this and we're going to make the stem. I pre-drilled some holes with a drill, poked it through. Make sure you have plenty of wire and just wrap it around. The last step was some small fairy lights. These are only about a couple of feet long. Zip tie the control to the bottom is wrap it all over. Use some wire or tent stake to hold your pumpkin down. And there we are. Once nightfall comes, use the remote and there you go. And wow! What a scene from the street. It looks amazing.
You're going to need a witch hat, pumpkin pail, a broom handle, pool noodle, and some gaffer's tape. So the first thing I'm going to do is remove the handle from the top so it's empty. Next, I'm going to place it into the grass, and I'm going to use my rubber mallet. Next, I've got some gaffer's tape, and I'm going to start by sticking it to the noodle, and then I'm just going to keep winding it around. Just going to slide it on to the broom handle. Next, I'm going to take my cool glue gun and load up a bunch of hot glue. Next, I'm going to take a pumpkin pail, and I'm going to center it up. Next, I've got some orange Halloween lights. I'm going to place some of them in the top of the Halloween pail. And next, I'm going to take and wind these lights around the pool noodle to the ground. Right underneath here, I'm going to place a little dab of hot glue, and I've got a little bow. I'm going to add a little hot glue to the top and place it onto the pumpkin pail. And I hope this inspires you to create a light up pole for Halloween at your home.
I have one of those foam crafting pumpkins, and I want to make a hole in the top of this one and also in the bottom. Smaller pumpkin, and I'm going to cut a hole in the bottom. I have my drill and I have a longer drill bit on it, and I'm gonna just drill some holes around each of the pumpkins. And I'm just taking a small amount of brown paint and I'm just following the ridges of the pumpkin. I'm taking a small string of Christmas lights. I'm gonna pop some in there, and then I'm just gonna put the whole thing into the top of the middle pumpkin and run it out the bottom. Now I'm gonna glue the pumpkins together. And now I'm gonna add a stem. I cut some bittersweet vine from my backyard, and I'm just gonna wrap it around the sections of the pumpkins. And here's our little pumpkin topiaries at night.
The very first thing I do is pick up my artificial pumpkin and I paint them. I need to draw a face on it. And now I am going to use my Versatool, which is like a hot knife, to go ahead and cut out my shapes. I'm going to add the black paint. So this is all the pumpkins that I have done. We're going to take each one of the jack-o'-lanterns and drill a hole at the top and the bottom. After they're drilled on, we just slide each jack-o'-lantern right up the pole. And then we take another piece of the pool noodle and we slide that right over the PVC. So I have fired up the glue gun. We are going to take these leaves that we are just going to cover these. We just slide the smaller PVC pole into the bigger one, and voila! Now I have finished the cross piece, and my dear husband is going to climb up and put it up there. The piece of PVC just slides right into that elbow. You cut the hole in the bottom and you feed the lights through, and then you cut the hole in the top and then you pull the lights. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stuff some plastic shopping bags down inside. I have gotten some Spanish moss that I'm going to drape out here. Here is our jack-o'-lantern arch during the day, all set and ready for nighttime to come.
The first thing I'm going to do is assemble the lanterns. They're really easy to put together. And then I'm going to grab a few different colors of orange paint and just paint the lanterns. While those pumpkins are drying, let's make some leaves. To add a stem, I am just gluing on a green pipe cleaner. For the stem, grab some newspaper, then roll this up and secure it with some washi tape. Then I'm just adding some brown paint and I'm going to let this dry. Now that everything is dry, let's put this pumpkin together. Now we're going to add a light to this. These lanterns come with lights. They have an on and off feature. I'm going to use a whole bunch of hot glue on the bottom and secure the stem around the hook on the top of the pumpkin. This collection of pumpkins looks great during the day and beautiful at night with those lights lit up.
Next time you're at the thrift store, pick yourself up a couple of lampshades. To begin my project, I just took apart the lampshade, so I just began with some scissors, cutting apart the fabric and ripping it off. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put this little knob back on. Then I'm going to go ahead here with a hot glue gun. I'm just going to attach this faux moss onto the wired parts. I came in with these solar fairy lights and wrapped them all around my lampshade. At night, once the solar lights have charged, they light up and they provide just a cool atmosphere for my backyard.
You're going to need some plastic tablecloth, pumpkin pails, and some tomato cages, and some lights. I'm going to start by placing the tomato cage upside down. With the part that sticks into the ground, I'm going to pull them all in together. Next, I'm going to take a pumpkin pail and place it upside down onto all of the prongs. Next, I'm going to take my lights and I'm going to use some painter's tape so that I can hold this in place at the top. But I'm going to wrap the lights around. Next, I'll be using a round plastic tablecloth from Dollar Tree. So now I need to make some eyes, and I'm going to be using some gaffer's tape here, and I've made a template out of a piece of paper. Here are all 3 ghosts lined up for the trick-or-treaters.
Run to Dollar Tree and grab 8 coils of nautical rope. I also pick up 2 of their pumpkin wreath forms. I start by adding some hot glue to the wreath form and begin to tightly wrap the rope around each spoke of the pumpkin. I continue doing this for all of the vertical sections. I do the same for the other pumpkin. Now I'm cutting off the excess rope. Then I use some thin floral wire to attach both wreath forms together. Using more hot glue, I start from the bottom and wrap the now connected edges with my rope. Once I have the entire outside of the now 3-dimensional pumpkin wrapped, I grab some thinner white cotton rope and wrap it around the wonky stem. Next, I place the wrapped pumpkin into a shallow basket. So I clip a few of these and I head back inside. I just tuck my hydrangeas into the gaps in the finished pumpkin to lay in the basket. I hope this inspired you to bring a little bit of fall into your home this week.
I picked up these 3 little wooden crates. So I've mixed up some brown milk paint that you just want to water down. And I want to make sure that I paint all sides and the inside. While my little crates are drying, I'm going to paint are these little gourds and pumpkins that I picked up at the dollar store. So I'm just going to take some of this pearl metallic paint and I just want to kind of brush it all over these. I'm just going to put some hot glue on the ends. And I'm just going to slide them together and hold them while they dry. I want to add some of this beautiful ribbon that I found. So I've gone ahead and made a little cut in the end just to make this a little nicer. Attach this down. I'm just going to take my knife, mark off where this would hit the top, and I'm just going to trim it a little bit shorter than where that is. I'm going to put a little bit of the hot glue, just a couple dabs down at the bottom, and that will hold my piece of foam right down there in place. And it's time to start filling those crates with some fall flowers. And don't forget we have those little gourds and pumpkins that we added the white pearl to. and we can add those in as well. You want to grab some moss to finish this off. These little crates were perfect to turn into a fall centerpiece. It was quick and easy, and I absolutely love how it turned out.
Picked up several of these styrofoam pumpkins from the Dollar Tree, and I'm going to pull the stems off. I'm going to take my green paint, I'm going to do just a little veining down the indentations, put our brush in the orange paint and pull it down over that veining. But it's just going to soften those lines. I grabbed a couple of these garden dishes from the Dollar Tree, and I'm going to take them out and spray paint them. I am going to start by gluing one pumpkin down to stick one of these little stems back in here. I'm just going to take one of these skewers, cut that and stick it. Go back in with our glue and secure it. And then I'm going to add one more pumpkin to the top. I'm using low temp glue because this styrofoam will melt. I'm adding candy corn to the bottom. We have pumpkin placemat, and everybody gets a little jar full of candy corn. Head to Dollar Tree and pick up some of those styrofoam pumpkins and make some of these for yourself for these holidays.
We're going to grab 4 pumpkins and we're going to pull off the little stems. We're going to take the small one, put it on top, and grab a taper candle. The taper candle is going to be the guide to make a hole. Then you're going to take an X-Acto knife and you're going to take out the area that you just drew and see it fits perfectly. So put a big blob of glue and put your little pumpkin on top. So we're going to grab 2 little wooden rings, put that at the bottom, and now they are totally stable. So now we want to take some faux branches and make this really festive. You're going to grab your hot glue and put a little dot of glue in between the 2 pumpkins and start adding in your pieces of the branches. And these are just some mini pine cones, and we're just going to hot glue those in a couple areas on our candle holder, and they're ready to display. Look how cute they are. I set up a little table arrangement on my outdoor dining table, and I think it looks super festive.
What we want to do is take our foam pumpkins and we're going to remove these stems. Just push them down until you have them pretty flat. So we've got our 2 plates, our 2 pumpkins, and we're going to use epoxy. So I'm going to put a nice generous portion on the bottom of my plate here, and I'm going to take my pumpkin and just stick it to the bottom of my plate. And then all you need to do is leave it and let that epoxy dry. Now that I've let my 2 sides sit for just a minute so that the epoxy starts to dry, and I want to again put a nice generous portion of the epoxy and mix it up to each side of the pumpkin here. And then I'm going to attach my 2 sides together. So I'm going to start with this beautiful bronze paint. Now I want to take a little bit of gold and I'm going to just lighten this up a bit and give it some highlights. Here you have our beautiful fall pumpkin inspired cake plate.
We're going to start with 2 bins, some pine cones. I'm going to go ahead and start by pouring my bleach into one of my bins. Be very careful when pouring your bleach. Start very carefully adding your water. 4 parts water to 1 part bleach. And now I'm going to take my pine cones and you're just going to go ahead and put them all in your bin. And now I'm going to take my empty bin and set it right on top of the pine cones. My gallon water container, and I'm going to set that on top, and my gallon bleach container, and those will weigh the pine cones down so that they are now submerged. Leave those for 24 hours. As your pine cones start to dry, they're going to start opening up. Start with a big piece of this brown paper. Started with a couple of rough cut wood rounds, and I'm going to start tucking these beautiful pine cones. And then I'm going to add some of these dried grasses in some pieces of raffia and tied them in a knot. And then I'm going to mix the knots in. So my table is set and my beautiful bleached pine cone centerpiece is the star of the table. So I'm going to start with these. So I'm going to use these 4 chargers, some birch logs on this kind of pine cone garland. So I'm going to put that down first. And then I'm going to intertwine it with my birch logs. And I'm just going to work these in to our garlands here. I'm going to tuck some of this down in to give us some more texture. I have a whole bin of bleached pine cones, and I'm going to add several of those. This cute little sign, I'm just going to try and add that right here. These cute little, I think they're supposed to be Christmas ornaments, and I'm just going to tuck those in around. And the next thing I'm going to do is add my dinner plates. I'm just going to use these orange napkins, tie them in a little knot, and just put them right like so. I have a few wood slices around, so I'm just going to tuck them. We're going to add wine glasses. Made little appetizers into little campfires. How cute are those? And I'm just going to set those right on top. I'm going to go ahead and set this. Nice little camping tablescape. Like I said, it's something you could use for lots of different occasions, and you can mix it up a little bit differently. If you're not familiar with these paper runners, they are fabulous. Any paper can do. This actually is an antler that my husband picked up. I'm just going to start with my centerpiece and just tuck these white pumpkins. I'm just going to start tucking these in around our pumpkins. I have some various feathers, and I'm just going to tuck these into. So I'm going to go ahead and set my table. When you put these down, and then I put my dinner plates on them, and I just thought it added another texture. So what I'm going to do with just setting my table for 6 green cloth napkins, and I'm just going to take them like so and pull them right through my napkin ring. I'm going to go ahead and add my flatware, and I will just pop him here at the end of the table. Add my crystal stemware to each place setting, and we will be ready to let people come, get in line, and head to the kitchen to eat.
1, 2, 3, 4. One, two, three, four.
spotted these styrofoam pumpkins. So I'm going to come in with some Krylon primer spray paint, and I'm going to give these a very light coat. And then I took them back inside and I took some acrylic paint to cover these pumpkins. I next came in with this pickling white wax from Dixie Belle, just in the indent lines. I also went over with a darker orange in the indent lines on some of the pumpkins. I'm going to take this dowel and I'm going to poke it down through the pumpkin. Then I'm just going to begin poking on my other pumpkins as well. Then I'm going to take this rustic bucket, I'm going to weigh it down with a rock, put some paper in, and then I'm going to push a styrofoam ball in there, and I'm going to push the end of the dowel into the styrofoam ball. I'm going to shove in some of this natural looking grass here, and then I'm also going to paint some of the stems of the pumpkins and stick them back in, and I'm going to decorate the tops of the pumpkins as well. I also made a little sign here for the top, and this is the finished look here. This looks so cute on my porch, and I'm so happy with how it turned out.
I wanted to cut off the corners of this big hunk of styrofoam, but I'm going to wedge this all the way down. We're going to start with some fresh plants. Then back here, I picked a couple of mums, and I had some scraps of dowel rods, some beautiful silk leaves, and push these down in the middle of my styrofoam here. I have things like pumpkins that we're going to add. So I just picked up things that I thought were nice for fall and nice color, but would raise up above. And I had one of these inexpensive chain leaf garlands left, so I'm just going to cut it apart and add some of these. Here is my beautiful urn, and it just adds so much down here at the bottom of my steps. We're going to cut these into, I have a 6-foot piece of wood trim. Use low temp glue and hot glue these on. What I'm going to do is take it and lay it on top of the styrofoam. 2 pipe cleaners, hook them together. I am going to wrap these around the wood and the garland. And then we're just going to take it and tighten it really tight, and then we'll come back and cut those off. And this is what you have now. I have gathered a selection of fall leaves and foliage, and we're just going to build this up with foliage now. So I'm going to take my fruit, I'm going to cut these skewers so it's a little shorter, and I'm going to start to add fruit to the styrofoam. So I have my little hook right here that I made. Yes. I'm going to use these kind of command strips. You're going to hook 2 of these together, them really tight, and then you're going to peel off to expose the sticky side. So we're going to stick this right on the back of the wood. And now we're just going to press that right against the door frame. The entire front door is all finished with these beautiful pieces down the side and a wreath and a part over the top to match.
So I grabbed this tomato cage and I took some Bare Premium Black Matte spray paint and I took it outside and I spray painted just the vertical poles of the tomato cage. Once the spray paint was fully dry and I cut off the top portion of my tomato cage, I then came in with some very heavy jute twine. You just start at one spot on the circle and you just lay your jute twine over top and hold it there until the hot glue sets. Once the hot glue sets, you just take the jute twine and you wrap it all around the circle. And then I just finish it off by securing it with a bit of hot glue. And then I'm going to go ahead and repeat the process on the other side of the tomato cage. This is my finished tomato cage plant stand. I actually made 2 to have an elevated look for my fall moms and my fall porch.
I'm going to take the corners and I'm just going to cut them with my wire cutters, just like that. So we've cut that in 2. And then we're going to go to the opposite corner and we're going to cut it one more time. And now we have 2 equal pieces. What I'm going to do is I'm going to cut this in half. I'm going to attach the wire over top of this oak leaf. So I'm going to take my wires and poke them right down in the foam. There we have something to begin to build up. But I'm going to go ahead and start adding some of these to my styrofoam. You don't have a stiff enough stem. You're going to take inexpensive wood skewer, lay it right next to the stem, and then I'm going to take some floral tape, wrap it around the stem and around the wood skewer. I can trim it longer, like so, and have it come way down there. So that's how you're going to add things to your foam. I'm going to go ahead and continue to build this up. These tend to slide out, so you're going to want to add just a little bit of hot glue to secure that so that it does not come out. So don't be afraid to use your hot glue to attach things. I like to use these command hooks where the back slides off of them, and I would suggest that you use these. I stuck that up there, and all I have to do is lift this up and hook it right on that little hook. So here's the front door, and my wreath, and the lovely corners that frame the upper edge of my door. The very first thing I do is pick up my artificial pumpkin and I paint them. I need to draw a face on it, and now I am going to use my Versa tool, which is like a hot knife, to go ahead and cut out my shapes. I'm going to add the black paint. So this is all the pumpkins that I have done. We're going to take each one of the jack-o'-lanterns and drill a hole at the top and the bottom. After they're drilled on, we just slide each jack-o'-lantern right up the pole. And then we take another piece of the pool noodle and we slide that right over the PVC. So I have fired up the glue gun. We are going to take these leaves that we are just going to cover these. We just slide the smaller PVC pole into the bigger one, and voila! Now I have finished the cross piece, and my dear husband is going to climb up and put it up there. The piece of PVC just slides right into that elbow. You cut the hole in the bottom and you feed the lights through, and then you cut the hole in the top, and then you pull the lights. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stuff some plastic shopping bags down inside. I have gotten some Spanish moss that I'm going to drape out here. Here is our jack-o'-lantern arch during the day, all set and ready for nighttime to come.
I have one of those foam crafting pumpkins, and I want to make a hole in the top of this one and also in the bottom. Smaller pumpkin, and I'm going to cut a hole in the bottom. I have my drill, and I have a longer drill bit on it, and I'm gonna just drill some holes around each of the pumpkins. And I'm just taking a small amount of brown paint, and I'm just following the ridges of the pumpkin. I'm taking a small string of Christmas lights. I'm gonna pop some in there, and then I'm just gonna put the whole thing into the top of the middle pumpkin and run it out the bottom. Now I'm gonna glue the pumpkins together. And now I'm gonna add a stem. I cut some bittersweet vine from my backyard, and I'm just gonna wrap it around the sections of the pumpkins. And here's our little pumpkin topiaries at night.
Christmas ornaments are just not my style, so I decided to give them a makeover. By removing the tops and popping in a skewer, I have a way to stand them up. I want to create some texture, add in some baking soda while I'm painting them. Now that the paint's dry, I want to add a powder coating to the smooth ones. I'm going to use some clear glue and then roll the ornament in the baking soda. For the ornaments that I added the texture to, I want to do the same process, but this time I'm going to use cocoa powder to dust them. The final thing I want to do is add a little bit of metallic bronze paint. While the ornaments are drying, I want to change up the little caps that go on the top. I couldn't be happier with how pretty these ornaments are now. They feel like they're old and worn and perfectly vintage.
Baking soda and Christmas decor? You bet. First, remove the caps from the tops of the ornament balls. Mix together equal parts flour and our magic ingredient, baking soda. Next, we're going to spray paint the ornaments. After you spray paint the ornament, drench it in the flour and baking soda mixture. I advise doing this one ornament at a time and wear some gloves. It can get a little messy. After painting and dunking, let the ornaments dry. Put the cap back on the ornament. Using a small paintbrush, gently brush off the excess flour mixture. For a simple holiday display, place multiple flocked ornaments in a bowl surrounded by greenery. Or tie a simple ribbon or string through the ornament cap and hang on your Christmas tree.
I'm going to be using some clear glass round ornaments. So I'm going to remove all the tops of the glass ornaments. I'm going to take a measuring cup and I'm going to pour a generous amount of the Mod Podge and I'm going to add a little bit of the brown fabric dye. I'm going to give it a stir. Once mixed, I'm going to use the measuring cup to pour the liquid into my glass ornament. And I'm going to swirl it around, making sure that the mixture covers the entire glass ornament. I want all the Mod Podge liquid to pour out the bottom. To make a darker color, I'm going to add some of this food coloring and give that a good stir. Once fully mixed, I'm going to make up some more ornaments in this darker brown shade. I'm going to leave these to set and drip for about 5 minutes. And I'm going to pound the glass ornament carefully to get out more of the mixture. And then I'm going to set them in a muffin tray. I'm going to preheat my oven to 250. And then I'm going to place the ornaments in the oven while it's still cool, allowing the glass to heat up with the oven. While my ornaments are baking, I'm going to take some styrofoam and I'm going to place the tops of the ornaments in there so they're easy to spray paint with this black matte spray paint. I'm going to make sure I check all my glass ornaments in the oven just to make sure that they don't get too hot. So I check them a few times before they're done. Once my tops are dry, I'm going to lightly brush over the black spray paint. Once my ornaments are done in the oven, I can remove them carefully. They were in the oven for about 30 minutes and these are the finished ornaments when I replace the tops. I've set them here in my kitchen in a little wooden dough bowl. I love the dark, moody vibe that they provide, and they look great amongst my Christmas decor.
We need to go ahead and remove the top off of the ornament. You just want a little bit of water. We're gonna add quite a bit of paint, and we're gonna mix it. Move it around so it coats the entire inside of the ornament. Once we kind of get it going, we're gonna turn it upside down onto the cup and let it dry. And when it dries, you're going to end up with a navy ball or whatever color you choose, just like this. We're going to put the topper back on. We're going to use the Mod Podge. Once you have the Mod Podge on, it is time to start with the leafing. Set this one aside. I'm going to let it dry. So we're going to use this gentle paintbrush and we're going to go through and we're just going to gently tap and brush the leafing. Look how fun. They're just beautiful.
Are you bored with bringing out the same old ornaments year after year? All I'm going to do is use a white Posca pen, and this is a gold Sharpie. I'll go all the way around. Next up is this little parcel and leave that to dry. So I'm going to highlight the ribbon. Okay, when that had dried, I used my white Posca pen. Now I'm going to do something with this kind of pine cone shaped one. Just as simple as that. And the last one I'm going to show you is this golden one. I'm going to do every other one. I'm going to leave some of the gold on here. I used the white pen again and just did a running line down the centre. And here are some more. I'm not going to show you how I did all these, but I think you get the hang of it now. I'm so excited to show you these ornaments. Every single one of them is different. Just look how interesting and exciting they look now. First one I'm using is a glass bauble, and I'm taking some white acrylic craft paint and I'm going to start pouring it inside. Whiz it around like that until the whole thing is coated. I'm going to use permanent markers. I have got these are plastic and they click together like that. They're easy to open. I'm just going to squirt some paint in both sides. And then, using the shaking method, I'm going to combine the paints. Okay, so that is now completely covered in paint. I am using a polystyrene ball that I have cut in half. Then I sanded the top. I had this picture of my children when they were little on Christmas morning. I took a photocopy of it on card, and then over the top I've used some contact paper, some clear contact paper. I have got a Christmas napkin and I'm going to take just the top layer, got some tiny bits here, and simply put some glue on the polystyrene ball and then lay the napkin on top. So this has been completely covered now, and I've also gone over it with one coat of glue as well, just to seal it in. And putting some glue on the polystyrene. I'm also going to put some on the back of this card as well, and then press it in place. So I leave that to dry. Also stuck around the edge, these little sticky half pearls in gold. And then taking some ribbon, push the cord in, the end of the scissors, put some glue on it to glue it in place. And here are the baubles all hung now on the tree. I'm really happy with how these turned out. They're all very personal and made for a fraction of the cost.
So I'm going to place this in front of me in a plastic cup, and I'm opening up a bottle of polyacrylic. Place this polyacrylic inside of the ornament, and now I'm just going to rotate my ornament slowly, letting that fluid cover the entire ornament. Now I'm just going to give this a light tap. I'm just going to use a little funnel, add about 2 tablespoons of glitter to my ornament. Tilting a little bit and turning slowly. I want to make sure that every bit of this glass is going to be coated with glitter. But you also want to make sure you're getting rid of any excess glitter. You don't want to have globs. Roll your clay into a ball, and then you want to roll it back and forth between your hands, and you want to make the tip just a little bit smaller than the rest. Exact same thing with my white. And at this point, I am going to press these 2 ends together and twist. Make sure you have a nice point at the top. So this is what my unicorn horn looks like once it's finished. At this point, you want to go ahead and bake this in the oven. Put some hot glue on the bottom of this. I'm just going to stick this onto my ornament. This is a paper flower tool. Slide your paper in, and it just holds your paper in place so that you can roll it into a flower. Put a little glob of hot glue, and then I'm going to gently release this and put my flower in place. And I'm going to put my darker flower in the center. And I have cut out a slightly smaller ear out of glitter paper. Now I'm going to bend this ever so slightly, and then I'm going to attach it right here behind my flower. So I'm just lining it up, make sure that it's centered. You can make these out of any color, whatever you want to do with these. That's the fun part, is you can really customize them completely.